Hello there everyone and welcome to Coding Owls. Today in this video we will be learning how you can implement rate limiting on an Express.js server. So let us begin. To quickly dive into the thick and thins of creating your own rate limiter for your Express.js server, I have already started a basic project for you. So let me quickly change my directory to the project directory and open this directory using the code command in Visual Studio Code. Here you can see in the package.json that I have installed three packages only. First one is Axios, the second is Express, and then third one is Node1. Now, if you are here to learn rate limiting of Express.js, I don't need to tell you what Express.js does and how it works, and similarly about Axios. Now, Node1 is a simple package that we use to run and watch our files using Node. So you can see I've already created a script called dev, which runs the command node1 index.js. So whenever something changes in our index.js file, it will auto track. Now coming to the index.js file. This is a very simple file where I have created a simple Express app and made that app listen on the port 7001. I also have one simple route, which is get quote, and all it is doing is it is calling the quotable API. It is a very good API to get random codes or codes with filters. You can check it out. I'll put a link in the description. So you can use this quotable API. We'll be calling this quotable API, getting one random code out of it, and then returning it back to the user. That's all it does for now. Now, if I open Postman and I go back to my terminal and run the command npm run dev, I will be able to start the server. Now if you go to Postman, you can see I already have this in place, and if I click enter, I can see a simple code has been returned by calling the quotable API. Right now, this is what the project looks like. Now let's understand what we are trying to do. So why do you want rate limiting in your server? That would be the first question that comes in picture. So rate limiting is required because your services can be rendered unusable to the users who are trying to use the service if the CPU is handling too many requests at a time. And if you do not have a rate limiting in place, a person with a malice or a hacker can try to access your API or plan a DDoS attack on your API and can render your services unusable to other users because your CPU is being utilized too many times. The other reason could be services like this quotable can have its own internal rate limiting applied to you, and thus if too many requests are made, this service will stop working for the other users, and thus you need to have a good rate limiting in place. Now, the simplest rate limiting, what in its simplest term means is you want to limit the number of times this API can be called. So let's just be very layman about it, and we'll use a variable called API called here, and we will increase this variable whenever this API is being called. Right, so we'll call it API call plus plus. Now if this API has been called more than 3 times, let us say you want to limit it to less than 3 times, you want to return the user a status code of 429, which means too many requests, and JSON which has its own error true and a message saying too many requests. Now when you save this, you can see how your Node1 server quickly starts and it updates your file. Now if I go over here and I run this API more than 3 times, you will see I'll get a 429 request, too many requests status code, and I see this message. This type of rate limiting has a big flaw, and this is one of the many flaws that it has. Now the biggest flaw is that this API, once your server starts, can only be called 3 times, and it does not really care about what user is calling the request. It will just limit the API to be called 3 times only. Now how do you solve this problem is simply you want to track what user is calling your API, and you want to restrict for each user a different rate limits, right? And not limits, basically this variable. So let's say for user A you want to have a variable called API called by user A, and then for user B you want to have API called by user B. Now we need one more thing from your rate limiting, which is removing the restrictions after a couple of minutes. Or also you can say the restriction should be something like 3 requests per minute, 5 requests per minute, right? So all the, and there are multiple other things that you might need in your rate limiting service, and that's where things get tricky. So maybe you can create your own service over here, probably you can manage it, but the best way would be to utilize something which is pre-made. So for us in Express, we have a service called, a package called Express Rate Limit, and I have already installed it in the background. So you can run the command npm express rate limit to install this package in your project. Once you have installed it, you can run the you can write const rate limiter over here. So we're gonna try to get this package in our file. Once we have this package in a file, so what this function that you're getting here over here is actually a generator function. So what this function does is it's gonna return you a middleware that you can directly plug into Express, and it will create automatic requests, rate limited requests for you. So we're gonna quickly just go to the documentation and see what Express Rate Limiter does. So if you go over here, you can see it's a simple generator function which takes some properties and returns you a middleware that you can directly apply to your Express server. So now let's just copy this one, and we want to continue this, and I'll explain you what all these things mean. Okay, so rate limiter and rate limiter. I've copied the comments also. So what's gonna say the window for which we want to apply the limit. So for us that window would be, so it says 15 into 16 into 1000, which means it's gonna be 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna remove them 50, so that means it's 1 minute, and then we're gonna have this 1 minute limit over here. Cool. Now limit will be 100, so we are limiting to 100 API calls for 1 minute, and I'll just reduce it for sake of running and actually getting into some rate limited errors, right? Now we will remove the standard headers, and we will also let the legacy header stay false. Now when your simple limiter is actually ready to work for you, and all you have to do is start saying app.use limiter, right? We can remove our superficial old API limiting logic. Now you can see within the 1 minute I can only make 10 requests, and after the 1 minute I can actually get back and create requests. So I'll just quickly do npm run dev, and we'll go back to Postman. As you can see, I'm back and I can still get the API calls. I'll quickly make 10 API calls and see if it stops me. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you can see it already started to giving me this too many requests, please try again later error. Now for the next 1 minute I will be restricted, and I will not be allowed to make any more requests. I'm quickly gonna pause the video and let the 1 minute pass, and then come back. Now that more than 1 minute have already passed, if I create a request again, I should be, and you can see I'm not restarted the server, so the server is still intact. So going back, yeah, so when I click on the send button, I should be able to get a request response from the service. As you can see, I'm back, and now again if I keep doing this for the next 10 minutes, for the next 10 requests, I'll quickly be stopped from using the service. And this allows you to divide the number of users of your API request among users. Now what it does is it's gonna create your what Express Rate Limit does, it's gonna attach it to your IP address, and only your IP address is blocked for now. So if you try it from some other IP address, you'll be able to meet the request. Now coming back to this, one very important things that comes into real world projects is, so let's say you have this get code API which is heavy duty for now, and you have a simple API called get message, and what it does is, well, this will be the simplest route you've ever seen. What it does is it just returns a response dot send hey. it just returns hey, and there's no processing involved. It just returns hey back, and I can quickly call this on the postman. Now you can see I'm also rate limited over for this API after 10 API requests, which is something that I don't want. Since this is a simple request, I do not want rate limiting on this one. There's one more important thing about this rate limiter comes in the picture, that it supports more options than what it is visible on the documentation's first page. So we also have a variable or property called skip, which takes a function, a callback function, which takes only the request, and what it does is it will pass you the request, and you can decide based on this request if you want to skip checking for the rate limiting. So for instance, I want to go for request the path if it is equals to this get message. I want to not check, and I want to return true, and if that is not the case, I would like to return false. So I'll just quickly make it simpler for us to understand. True, else I would like to return false. Right? This is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I want to do. Now if I save it, you can see my service restarted. I can go over here. I was rate limited on get message, but now I can make as many requests to the get message as possible without being rate limited ever, because this service, this function, basically this route is being ignored. Now if you go back and call the get code API again, you can see 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and I'm rate limited again. So this is where the rate limiting is, but it is not rate limited in the get message API. Like this rate limiter also supports multiple functions. It supports other type of default functions which can help you in manipulating the way rate limiter works. To see the full documentation, you can just quickly go and click on the full documentation button, and you can see on this page what kind of rate limiting options you have. To learn more, you can also I'll attach a few links in the description, and you can see how a rate limiter is implemented and what other functions can be used. For now, this is it for this video, and I hope you like this video, and if you do, please like and subscribe my channel. This is going to help me to keep this good work up if you like it, and as always, thanks for watching.